I mean, the only complaints I have is when somebody drives into the door. You know, they back up into the garage door.
Hey investors, Bradley here from Watson Estates, and you're listening to the largest, fastest growing podcast for Toronto real estate on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Now, beyond doing our regular updates, keep you in the loop with everything going on here in the GTA, which I love to do as a broker and investor, I think it's important that we grow ourselves. We can improve that mindset and actually speak to people who have been very successful in investing in real estate. And that's why today I am thrilled to have Mathew Frederick on the show. He is a real estate mogul through and through. He's applied pretty much every strategy in the book and been able to identify and actually has some great golden nuggets for us today on things you should be considering, whether you're just starting out or whether you are a seasoned investor. You're going to learn some stuff. I know I learned a ton on the show today. And hey, he's been investing in real estate for 30 years, which is older than me. He's been doing this for some time. Don't judge me now. And so if you want to learn anything, don't just focus on the fruit. Right? Don't just focus on this is the equity or this is the growth, the cash flow he's experiencing, because the way that Mathew looks at it, as he told me after we finished recording today, is it's all about the roots. How planted are you? Because you're going to have storms come along the way, and to have solid roots grounded near a well, near a place where they're able to grow and flourish, that is really what defines a successful investor that's able to have the staying power for decades and decades. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Hi, Mathew. Thank you for joining us on the show. How you doing?
Very good. Great to be here.
I am so glad to have you on the show. Our show, we pride ourselves on having some of the best guests, and we really did ourselves in bringing you on today. I'm so glad you could come in as a real estate mogul across the GTA, across Canada and the States even, and to teach us a little bit about some of the things I know you were telling me before the show, you're into mentoring and stuff. So I'd love for you to coach and teach some people a little bit of fun stuff on the show today. And so maybe why don't we start off talking a little bit about yourself? What's your background as it relates to real estate?
Well, I bought my first house at 19, but not as an investor. I'm an immigrant to Canada. I came when I was 7. So I always wanted to have my own property. And I saved up from the time I was 60, and I had a great business just dropping off cookbooks to businesses. And, I buy them for $4, sell them for 14, drop them off, have the receptionist sell them for me. And, his or her, pay would be a free book. And after 4 years, I was able to save up enough money to buy my first house. Now, I did need a small mortgage, so my parents had to co-sign for me, but I was not really an investor. I bought my first property 5 years later, I was actually a teacher. And my brother was a police officer, and he came to me and said, "Hey, we should invest in real estate." I'm like, "I'm not going to invest. I'm a teacher." He says, "I'm your older brother. I have a gun. You're going to invest." So I'm like, okay, I guess I have to do it, because I was a systems guy. I studied systems in school, while I was also in the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve. So I used that systems background, that boldness from being a soldier, at the same time a communicator from teaching. I parlayed that into being able to find some great deals and convince property owners to sell me their properties, hold mortgages. So I got into, the buy and hold. I started doing the rent to owns. I did a lot of assignments to help me, like wholesaling, I guess you call it today, to help me build money up in the valleys. Because, when you buy a property, you're in a peak, and then you're down in the valley till the next peak. So I would assign properties to other people in order to generate enough down payment to buy my next property. And then after a while, I hit the wall. I couldn't do anything else. Then I learned to JV. And then from JVing, I went up to actually, instead of JVing in a house, which didn't make a lot of money, I JV'd on buildings, which didn't get a lot of money. And years later, I got into into construction. So I've been fortunate to have learned how to build, 35 to 135 house subdivisions. So it's been an interesting ride.
And you're telling me you've developed condos, you've been in self-storage across Canada, the States. And so that's great. I thank you again for joining us, and we're gonna leverage that teaching skill. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about, so out of all the things you've seen, I think people are getting a sense of where you are today, but what is the best opportunity for someone that's maybe sitting back and they're like, shoot, like I have a house, I want to invest. What is the ultimate target for an investor if you were to if you could teach yourself way back when?
Well, if I were to look at my portfolio, the buildings, let's say building houses, let's say the stuff in Arizona, Florida, and Belize, across Canada, my most profitable real estate is self-storage. And it's funny, I got into it without even wanting to get into it. I had some cottages up in the Halliburton area. I was renting out, and we had to store stuff. There's an older gentleman who owned the self-storage, and I would store stuff there. I'd always bring him a coffee. And I didn't know that nobody talked to him. I guess I was the only one speaking to him for about 5 years. And when he was passing away, he said to me, I want you to buy this self-storage. I go, I don't want to buy self-storage. It's ugly. It's not attractive. It's a bunch of garages. It's just not, sexy, right?
Yeah.
There's no buzz about self-storage. Now, this is like 15 years ago. He says, listen, you know what? My wife is not pretty, but she's a good woman, right? I go, okay. He says, self-storage is not pretty, but it's a good thing, right? So I go, okay. I guess that's good advice.
That's great
Anyway,
advice.
I know it's kind of crazy, but that was his advice to me, and I bought it. And today, it still makes pretty much the most money. Remember, no fridge, no stove, no washer, no dryer, no kids, no pets, garage doors, simple storage. People pay between 150 and 550 for that location, and I have an employee who comes once in a blue moon. So that's always a great place to make a lot of money. But if someone's starting out right now, I would say, you know what, you want to do something where you get a good experience in dealing with mortgages, dealing with tenants. So instead of jumping right into, let's say, a multifamily, somebody should get at least a duplex or a triplex and spend about a year learning the process, or two.
I love that. So before I want to just dive, because you're one of the first people that have really pointed at self-storage as a great opportunity. What is it about self-storage? Is this in the States and in Canada, or is this just US? What about self-storage is like why it stands out as that amazing wife?
Yes, it's all what's inside, right? So the bottom line is it's great in the US and Canada as well. Now, self-storage has a few different generations. The one that I started with, it's the ones that you see. They're not so attractive. It's got like 40 or 50. Mine has about 250 locations, and it's just very low maintenance. I call it generation one, right? It's just low maintenance, and people show up, they put their storage in, they might keep it there for 3 or 4 years. I don't have any tenant issues. There is nobody calling me to complain. I mean, the only complaints I have is when somebody drives into the door. They back up into the garage door.
Yeah.
So the expense is very low, the income is very high, and the stress level to manage it is almost non-existent. Now, today, because land is more expensive, you would get 2 stories or 3 stories up one above the other, as opposed to the old system where you just have the single garage doors, right?
Yeah.
But you can make money in both.
Wow, interesting. Thank you. So, okay, so let's jump into. I love the advice. You're just getting started. And we've had rent to own folks. We had Rachel Oliver on the show. We've talked to people in all these different categories, and there's so many opportunities for people to get involved in real estate. So I love that you're saying, you know what, don't be afraid of the tenants and toilets. It's a good platform for us to learn. Why is that a necessary step if you want to build a reasonable size portfolio?
Because you have to understand the value of a dollar. You have to understand how long it takes to fix something. You have to understand how long something will last. See, okay, so I manage, or I'm partners with a number of people. So we have a lot of doors under management. Now, I don't manage the properties. I asset manage them. So I look over the property manager. But when a property manager comes to me and says, here's an expense, I know if it's a right or wrong expense. I could run the business in my sleep. In other words, I can fly the plane on the instruments without looking out the window. And it's so important to spend a year or two understanding, what lasts, what doesn't last, what breaks, what doesn't break. What's the cost of something? Because if you don't know that, then somebody comes in and they'll overcharge you, or you don't plan for something to break and it breaks. And it's almost like getting punched from multiple sides as you're walking down the street, because you had zero clue of what is happening. It's like kids. You can look at somebody who has a child, but when you have your own children and you have to raise your children, it's a whole different story. So I believe you should spend at least, people hate to hear this because they want to get rich today.
Sure.
But you need to spend about a year or two understanding the mechanisms of how a house works, understanding people, how they deal with you, how they treat you. Because if you don't understand how to deal with people, you're going to lose your money anyway. So I think it's critical to have that field experience, not just classroom experience.
And I think a lot of people take that route, the crawl before you walk, before you run type of scenario. I think people do it, but I don't think they're intentional about it. And so really that lesson would be to someone who is a firecracker and ready to run in jump in the pool of both feet. And so I think that's fantastic. Okay, so you're talking about these peaks and valleys, peaks and troughs that we have in our marketplace. And I saw a report from Rain, and we're trying to identify where we are in the cycle. I want to really dive into your psyche here and think, with COVID going on, we just came out of wave number 1. Now we're going into wave number 2. Our audience, they love the markets because that's what we talk about on a frequent basis. Where are you in this whole cycle? Are you looking at a specific type of real estate? Are you looking to buy? Are you selling? Are you holding? Are you freezing? Are you, like what's the plan in your portfolio?
Well, with my mentees so far in 2020, we have 16 buildings. So 16 multifamily buildings from 6 to 46 units. And, that's a lot of buildings in a year that pretty much everybody is running away from.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line is, it's not really, I don't focus on the market as much. I can't control the market, but I can control self. The reason why my portfolio is successful today is because 7 years ago, I sat down and I created an RI system. R means recession proof, I means internet proof. And if you're a tenant living in one of my buildings, I'm looking at not just your application, but your job type. Is it a recession proof job type? Is it an internet proof job type? Internet proof meaning somebody can't just take that business overseas. And because I have that as, let's say, a tenant, and also I have strip plazas with stores, are those stores internet proof stores? Are they recession proof stores? Okay, a convenience store is going to be there whether you're in a recession or it can't be taken away from the internet, because that convenience store cannot be in England. That's not convenient, right? It's around the corner. So I looked at the R system, the I system, and now I've added the P system, pandemic system. So I call it an RIP. It's almost like a rest in peace system. Now I'm looking at all businesses or people who are renting from me. I'm looking at tenants, and I'm looking at what type of job do you have? Do you have an essential service job? But I survived, not because the market was up or down. I survived because the R, recession proof, internet proof, did give me a stronger tenant. So in tough times, things are working well for me. So therefore, I control my destiny at least a little bit more than to worry about the market. And the market is all about inventory. How much inventory is on the market. Too much inventory, the prices go down. Less inventory, they go up. But ultimately, it's the systems you implement. They help you to stave off the ups and downs of the market.
And I think that that's a bit of a point of confusion for a lot of people. Is we often, again, starting from the baby, you're starting from the crawling phase here, and we understand, I've got a duplex and I'm managing it. And the way that we value that is based on the comparables. Once you start getting into the commercial space, I love that this approach is really, this is how you tackle it, is it's all dictated based on your ability to collect rent, the profitability of that building. So it's a whole different can of worms. So the fact that you're identified the tenant as the customer and the primary driver, I guess the question then is, based on these things and the systems you set up, just out of curiosity, I mean, we did hear of a number of evictions. I think it was less than we thought, but I'm curious what your portfolio looked like during those times when, with all the shutdown of the landlord tenant board. Did that affect you guys or your students by any chance?
Well, it has affected a lot of people, but again, I'm a proactive manager. In other words, we create a proactive system. So back in February, we actually took this COVID thing serious. And we took it serious because if you look at the past, every 3 years, there seems to be some new kind of crazy thing on the horizon, right? Sure. Whether it's SARS or, Ebola or, H1N1, Zika, so basically we take these things seriously. And we actually had a chance to meet with most of our tenants, the ones who thought they would have a financial situation. And if they didn't know it, if they were in a job that we figured might be a job that, wouldn't last. Like, I'll give an example. Internet-proof jobs are something like, let's say somebody who's cutting hair, beauty. You can't fly to India to get your hair cut. It has to be done local. But the pandemic affected those jobs, you see, because the pandemic shut those things down. So we identified of our R and I people who would be in trouble if things were to shut down because of the pandemic. And we met with them. And I had them also meet my financial advisor and look at their portfolio, look at their paperwork to see if they need to prepay or to see if we need to create some sort of a system for them. And because we took a proactive approach, we didn't have as many problems in that area. But I know a lot of people who did not take that approach, and I would say I saw a lot of problems there. In the commercial space, the retail space, 55% of the people who were not paying were small businesses. The larger businesses, 90% of them did pay. And as you see in Toronto downtown, people are thinking, are some of those large companies going to move out of downtown? Well, some of them, are they going to get less square footage? I don't think somebody will get less square footage. If you're renting 100,000 square feet, you might go to 60,000 in Toronto and then open up 2 or 3 satellite offices closer to where people live now in the suburbs.
Yeah.
People always say, will we get rid of all those places downtown? Well, bottom line is talent is attracted to environment. Environment is also affected by the rental space.
Yeah.
And if you want a great player to come to Toronto, you have to have a great arena. If you want a great employee to come to your business, you have to be big. So I still think there's a great space for big in Toronto downtown. Those big companies will stay there because they need to attract that kind of player to come to the actual company, to bring in more business, to be a leader amongst the other employees, and to be innovative, right?
I'm glad you brought this up. I want to dive into this a little bit more. A couple things. One, you're across Canada, so I'm curious. What are some of the provinces or cities that maybe are shining lights for you right now? Where you're like, that's very interesting. Focus on that. But I want to dive more into the city debate. People are running to the suburbs in herds. Do you think there's a place for cities on the tail end of second wave of COVID, or is this something that we're going to have to get used to, in which case, obviously, the smaller cities are going to outperform the bigger metropolitan areas?
I think all COVID did was bring 2025 to 2020, because ultimately we were going in this direction anyway. COVID just made us get there faster.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think some of the larger downtown office space, they will have to reduce because some people will now decide, hey, I want to work closer to home. I like working out of the house a few days a week. If it's possible, I like to work out of the house a few days a week, go to a satellite office, and then maybe go to head office fewer than, of course, more. Now, people say to me, hey, but do you think everybody will work from home? No, because here's the problem. Human nature is that we forget problems. Things happen, and you know what? 5 years later, we totally forget it. Secondly is, if you want a promotion, you're going to realize that a lot of people who are being promoted are the ones who actually go into the office. Because if you're not seen, you don't get promotions. So after 2 years, you're working in a satellite office, you're working out of your house, spending a few days a week at satellite office, coming to head office once a month, you're not seen, you're not shining. And it's very hard to stand out on a screen with 30 other faces. So then you'll begin to see people getting promoted, and you'll be like, you know what, I got to get back into the office. So yeah, I see people moving away, but human nature is to forget the problems, and sometimes a little bit of greed. I want a promotion. It's not greed, ambition. I want a promotion, and you need to be at the water cooler. You need to be seen, and you can do that. You can get a promotion from a distance, but you'll begin to see that going back to the office is what really helps things grow. But I think there will be satellite offices opening up. So a big company will have an office downtown, will have an office in Vaughan, office in Oakville, office in North York, smaller ones, so people can get into those. That's what I think. Same square footage, just dispersed.
So what we're seeing from what you're describing is almost pockets of little cities popping up, but not little, but becoming at a larger, more known stage across the GTA or across Canada and outskirt communities.
And I think we're going there anyway because people want to spend more time living their life than actually transiting to work. They're getting to know their kids a bit better. They're getting to understand, it's okay to spend more time, with the family. They're getting to understand that better. And in North America, we actually, we work hard. I'll tell you a quick story. In Belize, if you are a fisherman, you might end up, catching a small fish, and then you take that small fish, go a little further out, and then you will, catch a bigger fish, and then you'll use that as bait, and you'll catch a bigger fish with that bait. You spend your whole day pretty much fishing. So I would say to them, why not just get a big fish? Well, then what am I going to do for the whole day, right? So ultimately, they see time different. If the store is supposed to be open from 9 to 5, 5 days a week, sometimes if they have 3 good days, it's closed the rest of the week. Now, that's irritating. But the fact is, they don't live to work. They work and then they live. Here in North America, we spend so much time working and very little time living. That whole concept of closing your store if you did good is so alien to me that I find it kind of crazy. So we have to come back to a life work balance, and I found just really quickly that if you work at home and you go to the office, a combination of the two, I think that's more healthier than if you just work at the office or if you just worked at home.
Okay, so you hear that, guys? So a guy that's got 18 and 19 commercial buildings is telling you to take a little bit of time off.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so let's dive into a couple stories here because I love these analogies, and I think you're adding huge value here. So let's talk about maybe a success story, someone that's been able through your programs that you've seen, or I mean, it could be yourself even, some kind of big win that you've experienced because they maybe took a risk. And then I want to circle back to maybe someone that fell on their face and why that happened, or that way people can kind of prepare as they start to think more about growing their portfolio.
Okay, so a lot of people focus on strategy. Should I do rent to own? Should I do wholesaling? Should I do, buy, fix, sell? Should I do BRRRR? Should I buy buildings? You know what? That's not important. That's not important to success. What's important to success is, can you find off-market deals and convince an owner who was not thinking of selling to actually sell and have them happy with the result? Can you find off-market deals, not ready for sale, convince the owner to sell it, and the owner is happy that they sold it? That talent and skill set works no matter what strategy you do. The second one is, can you convince people who are living way too busy to be able to put some money into an opportunity that you have, and for them to be able to, in the future, be able to be less busy because of the opportunity that you found? So finding an off-market deal and finding people who are just not living to their fullest and bring them together is where you build wealth. And that's what I focus on when I mentor my students. Now, of course, when you learn that skill, which is hard to learn, but when you do learn it, if you want to do rent to own, if you want to do buy, fix, and sell, if you want to do BRRRR, if you want to do anything you want to do, it all works better because you don't have to worry about competition. You're getting markets, you're getting property before competition. And you don't have to worry about financing. Even when you're BRRRRing out a property, you're buying it and you're refinancing it. Every time you refinance it, you cut that slice of bread thinner. Yeah. At some point, everybody after 1 to 3 houses hits the wall and they can't finance anymore. So if you can master the art of getting people to bring money to the table, now you don't worry about competition and you don't worry about financing because you have that skill set. Then you bring it together. So I have a gentleman, his name's Chris. He's an HVAC guy. He makes about $75,000 a year. And I took him out and showed him the process. We were out in Barrie. He was able to lock down or talk to an owner who had a 6-unit, a 10-unit, and a 17-unit property. He was able to convert the 6-unit into an assignment. And that assignment, he assigned to somebody else. He got $100,000. And that was a 3-month period. It was not easy. It was a lot of preparation, a lot of work to do. But by securing the right to buy the property and then flipping that right to buy the property to somebody else, who then paid him an assignment fee of $100,000, that's his whole income for the year plus some within about 3 months. But the important part is he knows how to find off-market deals. We found another property that was a 12-unit property, and we were able to convince one of the owners of a different property who did not want to sell, but was still growing, to come on in as a partner because he was older. He was like 67 years old, didn't have the arms and legs in a sense, but still had the desire. And that's what we told him. I go, it seems like you still have the desire to grow. What's holding you back? Well, I'm kind of old. Well, we're young and we have the systems. You have the money. And so he brought them together with that person together with Chris. And Chris was able to get a 12-unit building. At the same time, 50% of the equity, 50% of the appreciation and the cash flow will be Chris's. Rest will be the partners, and the partner provided all the money for it. And that's within a 6-month period of time in the COVID world. Okay, so it's possible to do things, you just have to know how to do them. But remember the skill set, finding off-market deals and knowing how to joint venture or assign them. And that's where you begin to grow your money.
Mathew, that's gold, man. I hope people, if they didn't catch everything you just said, they go back and listen. That is a win-win if there ever was one. So really, people are left with the decision: do you want to be active? Do you want to run around? You want to find these deals? Now, we get a lot of real estate professionals following our channel and I hope they're not tuning you out here, simply for the fact that they want to know what the market is doing. But we've had wholesalers on our show, and they're more than happy to work with realtors. So the thing is you've been hired as a realtor to do the best job possible for your clients. If you want to get in the investing arena, then do the best job for your clients. And that includes finding off-market properties. But then on the flip side, for people who they don't want to be working 9 to 5, they want to go move to Belize. Those individuals have a platform where they're able to find that young whippersnapper and go out and find those deals for you. And so wherever you are in there, it's a win-win. I think that's wonderful.
That's true.
So tell me maybe a story, whether you have a failed story or just, I'm more curious, not so much about the story, but I want to know, where are the risks? Like for someone on either side, what is the risks that still exist, whether it includes because of COVID or not? What are the pitfalls that we need to be paying attention to as we move forward?
Well, if I look at my 29 years of investing, and I've had success and I've had failure. People out there who tell you they're always successful, you know what? I've failed enough. I've just been fortunate to let's say, be more successful more times than my failures. But no matter what it is, it's never the property. It's really the people. It's your partners. And I've picked the wrong partners in my past, and for all sorts of different reasons. At one point, I remember I did some deals, towards Chatham when I was beginning, but I was still very knowledgeable. And I thought I had the wrong partner out there. I knew that he was an exaggerator and that he wouldn't really, keep all the records. But the fact is, I figured my ability, my strength, my ability to teach, my ability to lead, my systems will compensate for his lack of ability. And I learned quickly from that mess up that you cannot change a person if they don't want to change. And as great as you are, your greatness will not compensate for their failure. So the wrong partner, was able to, went out there. We bought 5 houses. I financed them. And pretty much every single house was delayed. And by that time, 2007, the market had collapsed. And I was able to renovate like 5 houses for, let's say, buy, fix, and sell. So I didn't harden them. They're more beautiful. But we had to rent about 3 of them. So a year after that, all of a sudden, these houses were back to what they were looking like before. Yeah. And by the time we sold them, we didn't get a lot of money. But I knew my partner was an exaggerator. I just figured I can overcompensate for it. Ultimately, it's my fault. But all problems I've had have always been picking the wrong partners or depending on the wrong people. And I've had to learn to be able to do that. So finding deals off market, learning how to get partners to help finance you, and learning how to pick the right partners. Those 3 are very, very important.
What a beautiful business. This is very much we're in the property business, but we're really in the people business.
We're in the people business. That's right.
That's why I would be crazy to run a podcast without having awesome guests come on and rub elbows with. And I hope everyone shows some love to Mathew, especially if you guys learned something today. Make sure you guys leave a comment or give a thumbs up. And Mathew's taken time out of his busy schedule to come in and say hi and teach us some great stuff today. So Mathew, for anyone who wants to kind of reach out to you and enter your circle, I know a lot of the guests we've had on the show, a lot of people who listen, they want to be a part of what all these great people are doing. So where are they best to find you if they want to learn a little bit more?
Well, they can go to my website. It's, if you have a pen, it's rccsol.com. So rccsol.com. Check out some of the podcasts I've been on. Look at my history and see some of my philosophies. Meld them with yours. It's important to take from others and mix with yours. And you become stronger and better. And that's important.
Awesome. And we'll leave that info down in the comments descriptions below as well. Thank you, Mathew, for taking time, and we'll see you next time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.